Tennis history changed forever today because the WTA has entered a state of total collapse after a massive secret involving Coco Gauff finally came to light. Instead of relying on natural skill, the young star has been operating as an unstoppable machine powered by illegal software while leadership desperately tries to hide the truth from the public. This scandal stands as the biggest betrayal in the history of professional sports, and it reveals a dark reality of greed where natural talent is being replaced by lines of code. A secret software program sits at the center of his controversy and is changing everything we know about the game while the villains at the top watch their empire crumble. WTA leadership has entered a total meltdown mode because their golden girl is at the center of a storm that could destroy the entire sport in a single afternoon. This secret AI coaching scandal transformed Coco Gauff into an unstoppable force, and our investigation uncovered that she didn't achieve this through practice but through illegal software. What is happening on the court is no longer about tennis, and instead, the game has been replaced by biometrics and hidden signals that guide every step. Villainous executives in the front office allowed this to happen while they watched the game be sold to the highest bidder, and now their calculated lies are starting to unravel in front of everyone. Internal files confirm that Gauff utilizes illicit real-time AI biometric feedback, which isn't just a standard fitness tracker, but a high-tech weapon used during championship matches. Hidden wearable haptics vibrate against the skin to send signals directly to her during a point, which meant she knew where her opponent would hit the ball before they even started their swing. This software predicts shot patterns with a confirmed 99% accuracy by analyzing body language in real time, focusing specifically on things like shoulder tilt and grip. A single pulse to her wrist indicates a cross-court shot, while 2 pulses signal a down-the-line play. And that's when the competition becomes impossible for any human to win. 99% is the confirmed accuracy rate of the software that predicts every shot before it happens, which effectively removes the element of surprise from the game. Gauff wears a device that looks like a normal fitness tracker, but it functions as a remote control system for her nervous system. Silicon Valley Labs developed this technology in total secrecy to see if an athlete could be optimized using external data bursts during live competition. The software processes the opponent's historical data and combines it with live video feeds from the stadium cameras to generate a real-time prediction. While the opponent is still in their wind-up, the AI has already calculated the most likely trajectory of the ball and sent that information to Gauff's wristband. The locker room has turned into a scene of mutiny because the other players clearly see Gauff moving before the ball is even struck. Natural instinct is dying in a sport that was always meant to be a chess match between two minds, and you simply cannot play chess against a supercomputer. Gauff appears strangely composed because she is being fed the answers to the test while the match is happening, and the reality is that the AI does all the thinking for her. WTA executives like Steve Simon face a total downfall after trying to frame this mechanical cheating as simple innovation for the fans. Steve Simon and his team bypassed their own coaching restrictions by using documents that prove this software was tested in total secrecy over several months. Tech giants developed this system to turn players into walking advertisements, and they chose Gauff to be the face of the American market because they needed her to win at any cost. The integrity of the sport is the price they paid, but the locker room is fighting back as a group of brave truth-tellers who refuse to be turned into robots. They are pointing to the evidence and showing the world that Gauff's magic defense is actually just lines of code written by data scientists. What we are seeing is a procedural failure of epic proportions where the rules were ignored to favor a specific narrative that benefits the villains at the top. The WTA executives wanted a dominant American champion to drive up television ratings and ticket sales, so they allowed this algorithmic edge to take over the tour. This wasn't just a small advantage, but was instead a total overhaul of how a player interacts with the game on a physical level. The Unstoppable Machine isn't just a catchy nickname anymore, but is a literal description of what Gauff has become under the guidance of this illegal software. During the recent tournament in Madrid, the match data revealed reaction times that are physically impossible for a human being to achieve regardless of their training. A human brain needs time to process visual cues, but Gauff reacted in less than 100 milliseconds, which is faster than a blink of an eye. That mechanical head start is what the Ghost Coach predictive engine provides, and it was fed thousands of hours of match footage to learn the habits of every player. It knows exactly how IJ's attack hits her inside-out forehand when she feels pressure, and it sends those data pulses directly to Gauff's nervous system. The predictive engine uses a complex neural network to map every possible outcome of a tennis match before the first point even begins. It tracks the sweat levels, the heart rate, and the micro-twitches in an opponent's muscles to determine their next move with frightening precision. This level of biometric surveillance is a total violation of fair play, but the WTA allowed it because it made for great highlights on social media for the fans. They were more interested in viral moments than they were in the actual rules of the sport they were supposed to be governing. Madrid was the crime scene where the evidence finally became too obvious to ignore, and the data points show Gauff moving toward the corner before the ball even left the strings. In any other era, this would be called magic, but in 2026, we know it is just a high-speed data link between the stadium cameras and a wristband. The pulses are so subtle that they can't be seen by the naked eye, but they are powerful enough to guide a player's feet to the exact spot where the ball will land. This marks the end of the human element in professional tennis as we know it today. The WTA executives modified the 2026 official rulebook to create a loophole in Section VII, Clause J, which used to ban all electronic devices entirely. They rewrote it to allow biometric monitoring under the guise of player health and injury prevention, but the hidden files show they were actually tracking opponent movements. High-definition cameras in the stadium fed data into the haptic wristbands. While the industry watched the soul of tennis die for profit, major sponsors like Nike and Head are now terrified because they don't want to be associated with a rigged game that has lost all credibility with the public. IJ Swiatek noticed the change first during her match in Madrid when Gauff reached a perfectly disguised drop shot that no human should have caught. Swiatek looked confused and talked to her coach before eventually retiring from the tournament in a move that the WTA called an illness to protect their secret. The truth is that she was protesting a league where the outcome is decided by a server in Silicon Valley instead of the players on the court. Documents show that executives were receiving kickbacks from tech companies, and money was funneled into private accounts for every match that used the AI system. This was not a simple mistake, but was instead a calculated lie that started in the corporate boardrooms and ended on the championship court. The WTA leadership knew that if they could control the outcome of the matches, they could control the revenue streams for the next decade. They were willing to off the integrity of the game for a higher stock price and more lucrative broadcasting deals that benefit themselves. The problem was that they underestimated the intelligence of the players and the fans who could see that something was fundamentally wrong with the competition. The procedural failure here is astronomical because the umpires were explicitly told not to inspect the wristbands during match play by their superiors. Trainers were ordered to ignore the vibrations, and when a whistleblower within the WTA staff tried to speak up, they were immediately silenced by the legal department. They were told their careers would be finished if they mentioned the haptic feedback, but the truth cannot be buried under a mountain of non-disclosure agreements forever. Technical logs from the Madrid final show a constant stream of data being sent to Gauff's device, averaging over 100 pulses per minute. What nobody expected was how quickly the rest of the tour would unite against this digital takeover to protect the future of the game. Players who used to be rivals are now standing together to demand an independent investigation into the source code of the ghost coach system. They want to see the communication logs between the coaching boxes and the wearable devices because the reality is that the matches were rigged from the start. The industry is realizing that fans want to see humans making mistakes, not robots performing perfectly executed patterns that never fail. The mutiny isn't just about one tournament, but is about the entire future of professional sports and how we define athletic achievement. If this technology is allowed to stay, every player will be forced to use it just to keep up, and the game will become a competition between software engineers. The hero in this story is every player who has the courage to speak up against the system, even when they are threatened with massive fines. They are the ones who are actually trying to save tennis from the villainous people who are supposed to be in charge of it. Rolex is considering pulling their sponsorship of the year-end finals because they are a brand built on precision and human mastery that cannot be associated with a hack sport. The financial situation at the WTA is in a free-fall after they gambled the entire tour on this AI experiment and lost everything they worked for. The executives are trying to blame technical glitches and claiming Gauff was unaware of the device's true function, but the documents show everyone involved was part of the plan. Data scientists from Stanford and MIT have been identified as the shadow coaches who were seen in the player boxes with encrypted tablets. These engineers weren't there to clap for winners, but were instead typing code to adjust the aggression levels of the software in real time. This isn't coaching in the traditional sense, but is instead high-level engineering that turns a tennis court into a laboratory for big tech. The industry is distancing itself from this machine era because broadcasters and sponsors know the money disappears once the fans stop believing the matches are real. The reality is that these shadow coaches were actually controlling the flow of the match from their laptops while sitting in the stands. They could see the fatigue levels of both players and adjust Gauff's strategy to exploit any weakness the second it appeared on their screens. This level of interference is a total violation of the spirit of the game, but it was all sanctioned by the people running the WTA. They thought they could create a product that was perfectly predictable and perfectly marketable, but they ended up with a product that has no soul. The rewrite of Section VII, Clause G, the 2026 rulebook, was a calculated move that happened just weeks before the start of the season. This specific clause used to be the bedrock of fair play because it outlawed any form of communication between the player and outside sources during a match. When the executives changed the wording to include approved biometric monitors, they essentially legalized cheating while lying to the face of every player on the tour. The reality is that this was a planned takeover of the sport by tech companies who wanted to see if their algorithms could manufacture a champion. Documents from the WTA's own legal department show that they were warned about the potential for scandal months ago by their own staff. Their own lawyers told them that the Ghost Coach software was in direct conflict with the fundamental rules that govern professional tennis, but the executives chose to ignore those warnings because the profit margins were too high to pass up for their own personal gain. They decided to gamble the reputation of a sport on a lie, and now that gamble has blown up in their faces. Coco Gauff is also a victim in this scandal because she was convinced by her management team that this was just a performance aid. She was pushed into this role by a team that wanted a superstar, and now her entire legacy is being burned to the ground by the people who were supposed to protect her. Her titles will always have an asterisk next to them, and she will be remembered as the AI machine rather than a natural talent. Villainous executives didn't just cheat the fans, they cheated their own star player out of a legitimate career. What happens next will decide the fate of the entire WTA tour and whether it can ever regain its place as a legitimate sport. If they don't remove the leadership and ban the technology, the players will start their own league where the rules are actually enforced. The locker room is currently voting on a strike that would shut down the entire summer season until their demands are met. They want a total purge of the front office and a return to the 2025 rulebook that didn't allow for this digital manipulation. The industry is watching as the unstoppable machine narrative falls apart in real time before their eyes. Broadcasters are seeing their ratings dip as fans realize they are watching a pre-programmed script instead of a true competition. The drama of tennis used to come from the fact that anyone could win on any given day, but with the AI software, the outcome is always the same. This has turned the matches into boring exhibitions of technology rather than thrilling displays of human athleticism. The locker room mutiny has officially won because the truth about the AI coaching scandal is now common knowledge across the globe. There is no more hiding behind corporate jargon, and there is no more pretending that the matches were fair or honest. The unstoppable machine has been unplugged, and the brave truth-tellers have saved the sport from total destruction at the hands of the WTA leadership. Steve Simon thought he could own the future of the game by replacing the human spirit with a microchip, but he lost control of the truth. The 2026 season is a complete write-off that will force a total clearing of the house at the WTA headquarters in Florida. The era of the machine has officially ended, and the era of the truth has finally begun for the players who refuse to cheat. Tennis will return to its roots as a game of grass, clay, and grit, where the best human athlete wins. The villain thought their plan would last forever, but the reality is that the truth always finds a way out. The documents are now public, the haptic devices have been confiscated, and the shadow coaches have been banned from the tour for life. The WTA brand is currently toxic, and it will take a generation to rebuild the trust that was lost in a single season. This is the ultimate Lesson in why greed and technology can never replace the heart of a champion. The GAUFF algorithm was a failure that almost destroyed everything it touched. Steve Simon and the WTA executives thought they'd destroy the hero, but they only destroyed themselves.